Apple's found time to release new products in the midst of all this, new iPad, new MacBook and new Mac Mini, and released a new version of iOS that's got mouse support, which is actually the thing that caught my attention the most out of all of that, because I've had the chance to play around with this for about a week now, and although it's not implemented in the same way as it would be on a standard Mac or a PC or whatever, effectively you can use a mouse with your iPad now. It's got a round cursor. It when you move it over different parts of the screen where you would be tapping things, it contextualizes itself, so it'll change. So if you go over text, it turns into a line cursor, or if you hover over an app icon, it makes it go into shadow, so you can tell that you're over it. And that sounds like it might be convoluted, but it actually works really well. And despite a little bit more implementation, so it probably needs third-party apps to be updated for it, etc., etc. I actually think it makes the case that it could effectively replace a laptop if you're only doing writing, emailing, and all that sort of thing, and you get the benefit of all the iOS experience. So it's easier to get access to content, for instance, on an iPad, I think, than on a laptop, even though it's not that difficult. But it's interesting, like because I've had that whinge about the butterfly keyboard on my Mac and wanting to get it replaced, and I'm just starting to think now that with just that one implementation that they've put in with the mouse support, I don't need to do that now. I can just use the iPad to do all that stuff.
Wow, that's interesting. The thing that's just occurred to me is that I actually probably haven't used an iPad for about 3 or 4 months. I mean, primarily, I can't get them out of the kids' hands, and then after that, I've got a fairly good setup with my HP foldable 360 laptop. But I used to type on the iPad, and I used to type my blog on there. I'm very curious, Ben. So obviously, it's a wireless mouse. Where do you put the mouse when you're using your iPad? Well, because if it's sitting on your lap, where does the mouse go? And you're on the lounge, where does the mouse go?
Well, ultimately, you can only really use the setup when you're sitting at a table or a desk or something like that. So
that's professional sort of usage.
Absolutely, yeah. So like I found in just that particular setup that I was using it effectively like a laptop. It didn't start to not feel like an iPad anymore. The interesting thing is that they're releasing an accessory in May which has a combined keyboard and trackpad in the case. I think there's that the Apple one, costs $1 gazillion as it usually does, but the third party makers are making theirs as well with the trackpad installed. So effectively, you could walk around just with your iPad in that case in one unit, just like a laptop is, I guess, and it would be fairly versatile in that respect. I think it's actually a fairly significant step forward for them because I think it actually wipes out the reason for a lot of people to have a laptop now.
I was going to say that. I mean, it sounds, and I know they've just released a new AirBook, but which is effectively, I understand from the hardware and the chipset in there, it's effectively an iPad anyway with a lid.
It's just a question of what you prefer to use or what you think is the best to use. And for me, because of not to say that it's underpowered, the new MacBook Air, but it's just that to go to the extent of using a laptop, you would probably be starting to use things like Final Cut or Logic or something a bit more Photoshop or something, in which case you'd probably want to get the MacBook Pro in that instance. So it would be interesting to know what the use case is for that Air because, like I said, I would think the iPad's better usage for emailing, writing, and all sorts of other stuff.
Well, maybe as a bit of a segue, what the iPad Air is perfect for is working from home, sitting on the lounge and browsing or watching videos instead of doing any work.
Yeah, exactly. Get yourself nice and distracted during your home-based work.
Type the occasional email and job done.
Yeah, absolutely. The one last point I wanted to make on that is that that support is available to any iPad that can take the latest update as well. So it's not just restricted to iPad Pros or whatever. So anyone can turn their, I guess, iPad that can take this update into, something that's more closer to a laptop now, which I think that's a fairly big concession for them, because they tend to be, quite draconian in saying what you can and can't do with your devices.
I guess the question there is, what was Steve Jobs saying?
Yeah, well, he's probably screaming from the heavens right now.